Maybe you didn't find this video by chance. Maybe something within you recognized a frequency that matched a truth you've carried all along, the sense that reality isn't a wall to push against, but a mirror waiting for precision. There's a technique so elegantly simple, so naturally aligned with how the field of existence actually behaves, that once it's remembered, everything you experience begins to reorder itself, not because you forced it through rituals or belief, but because you've started operating from the real mechanics of creation itself. At the quantum level, the universe doesn't negotiate with effort or history. It responds to observation right here, in this breath, in this moment of awareness. The equations physicists explore and the insights mystics whispered centuries ago point toward the same pattern. Consciousness and reality are partners in motion. Over time, that knowing was buried under symbols and ceremony, as if awakening required mastery of hidden codes. But what if it's the opposite? What if manifestation has always been the most effortless expression of consciousness itself, and you've been doing it all along, without realizing it if you're still here? If something inside you leaned closer instead of scrolling away, that's your deeper self stirring. It's the memory of capability resurfacing, not as new knowledge, but as ancient recognition. This isn't about belief or faith or convincing yourself that things are better than they appear. The field doesn't respond to belief. It responds to the quality of attention you bring to it. Physics, in its quiet precision, tells us that a particle does not sit anywhere definite until it's observed. Before that, it hovers in superposition, many outcomes coexisting at once. In that sense, consciousness doesn't find reality, it defines it. The same law that moves electrons applies to the possibilities in your life, the relationship, the healing, the abundance already vibrating as potential right now. You don't chase those futures, you select them through the way you observe. So take a breath, a deep one. Because this isn't just information, it's initiation. Once you see how observation shapes reality, you can't unsee it. Once awareness becomes deliberate, the universe responds accordingly. You may remember that final breath, the one that closed the last section, as more than a pause. It was the threshold between unconscious looking and deliberate seeing. From that breath onward, the act of observation stops being passive. It becomes creation in motion. When quantum physicists first noticed that the simple presence of an observer could change an experiment's outcome, they weren't trying to write poetry. They were measuring light, those twin streams of possibility known as particles and waves. Yet what they found read like scripture. The particle behaved one way when watched, another when left alone. That meant reality itself was responding to the gaze. It wasn't waiting to be discovered, it was waiting to be decided. Imagine shining a light through two narrow slits, left to itself. That light paints a soft interference pattern, waves merging in harmony. But when someone looks directly, just looks, the pattern changes. The wave collapses into a single path, as though the universe had been caught choosing. Science calls this the observer effect. Spirit might call it attention crystallizing possibility. Now, consider your own life as that experiment. Every thought, every emotional fixation, every narrative you repeat acts as a lens through which the field decides what form to take. When you glance at a challenge expecting it to disappoint you, you've already begun collapsing probability toward that outcome. The mind doesn't have to say it aloud. The vibration of assumption does the work. Observation isn't watching, it's sculpting. You might notice this in everyday details. You wake one morning convinced the day will be heavy, and somehow the world arranges itself to confirm your prediction. People move slower, delays multiply. The air thickens, but when, through some unexplainable grace, you wake with openness, the same reality bends differently, faster lines, lighter words, coincidences aligning like choreography. The external has not changed, the observer has. Psychology mirrors this discovery in subtler language. Cognitive scientists speak of selective attention and confirmation bias, the brain's tendency to find evidence for what it already believes. But beneath that pattern lies the same quantum engine awareness, shaping reality through expectation. The laboratory and the psyche are two mirrors facing each other, each reflecting the truth that noticing is never neutral. So when we speak of conscious observation, we're not talking about staring at vision boards or forcing positivity. We're talking about the physics of participation, the moment when consciousness, by focusing, chooses a version of reality out of infinite possibility. The act is microscopic yet monumental. Each perception folds the wave of potential into the fabric of lived experience. This is why your attention is sacred currency. Whatever you spend it on expands its presence in your world. To observe with fear is to multiply the signal of fear. To observe with awareness is to invite coherence. The field doesn't moralize, it mirrors. That realization can feel unsettling at first. It dissolves the illusion that life is happening to you. But within that recognition hides your greatest power. Because if noticing determines outcome, then awareness, refined and deliberate, becomes the steering mechanism of existence itself. You begin to sense that every glance, every interpretation, is an instruction to the universe, a code written in consciousness. When the observer remembers this, reality reorganizes around that remembrance, not as magic, as mechanics. So pause again, feel your eyes soften. Notice that noticing. That's the engine turning. Quiet, invisible, but already rewriting the pattern beneath your day. If you listen closely to that quiet engine, the pulse of observation, you'll sense its rhythm extending beyond your eyes, beyond the mind's stories, into the invisible filters that shape how you see. That's where the real architecture of perception hides. Each human carries an inner lens assembled from experienced childhood impressions, collective beliefs, ancestral echoes. These filters decide what you can notice and what slips past unregistered. You think you're perceiving reality, but you're perceiving permission, what your system allows you to witness without threatening its version of safety. The field responds accordingly, mirroring those invisible permissions as the boundaries of what seems possible. Most of us don't realize how thick those filters are until we start to challenge them. You might affirm abundance, yet part of you still observes through scarcity. You might visualize connection, yet the nervous system flinches from intimacy. And so the quantum field, ever faithful to the quality of attention, collapses probabilities that match those deeper vibrations, not the words, not the wishes, but the frequency beneath them. Picture a prism held to light. The full spectrum is already present, but you only see one color where the glass angles just right. That's what conditioning does to consciousness. It refracts infinity into fragments. And until you adjust the angle, you keep collapsing the same narrow band of possibility, believing that sliver is the whole sky. Neuroscience whispers the same lesson in a different dialect. It speaks of neural pathways, roads paved by repetition. Every perception reinforces its own circuitry until the brain literally edits out what contradicts its model of the world. But consciousness precedes the brain. Once you notice the pattern of noticing, you stand outside the loop long enough to choose a different lens. That's the first act of power awareness of how you observe. Most people try to change what they see, circumstances, behaviors, outcomes, but transformation begins in the how. When you change the quality of observation, the content of observation must reorganize. The field doesn't resist, it recalibrates. Let's make this less abstract. Imagine you're facing a situation that feels immovable, a job, a relationship, a pattern that repeats. Instead of asking, "Why can't this change?" ask, From which lens am I observing it? Notice the assumptions embedded in your gaze. This is hard. This always happens. Nothing ever works. Each assumption acts like coding language to the quantum processor. Shift the assumption, and you rewrite the output. Ancient mystics intuited this truth when they spoke of Maya, the veil of perception. The veil wasn't punishment, it was protection, a cocoon for consciousness still learning how its gaze shapes matter. The awakening isn't about destroying the veil, but realizing it was self-woven. Once you see the threads, you can begin to unweave. You might feel resistance in this unweaving grief, confusion, disorientation. That's natural. When filters loosen, the nervous system loses familiar reference points. You're not breaking, you're expanding the aperture of perception. The field around you feels it instantly. New probabilities rush in like oxygen into a room long sealed. From here, practice becomes subtle. It's no longer about visualizing outcomes. It's about noticing how perception itself modulates energy. Each time you soften judgment, reality offers you a new data set. Each time you look at something you once labeled problem, and instead observe it as neutral vibration awaiting instruction, the wave shifts beneath it. Over time, you'll sense the feedback loop quicken. Observation changes, experience follows, belief updates. Observation changes, again a self-healing circuit. This is the mechanics of perception mastering itself. You stop being a prisoner of your filters and become the artisan of them. And when that happens, when seeing becomes sculpting, you realize there was never distance between observer and observed. Only layers of unawareness folded over light. Remove them, and the whole spectrum returns. Infinite, immediate. So take another breath and let the lens widen. Notice how colors deepen, sound sharpen, possibilities flicker at the edge of perception. You're not imagining it. You're remembering how to see. From that widening of perception, the next revelation begins to emerge not as new information, but as an embodied knowing. Once you recognize how filters shape what you see, you start to wonder if I can shift the lens. What else can be reshaped by awareness itself? The answer arrives softly. It's everything. Every probability, every circumstance, every pattern that once seemed fixed. And this is where the three movements enter like coordinates of a deeper map. They aren't steps to follow or mantras to recite. They're living qualities of consciousness, three ways your awareness can interface with the field and sculpt it deliberately: witness, awareness, assumption shift, and quantum feeling. Together they form the geometry of deliberate creation. The first, witness awareness, is the foundation. It's the recognition that you are not the noise, but the stillness noticing it. You are not the storm of thoughts, but the space through which they move. This shift seems simple, almost invisible, but it changes everything. Because when you remember that you are the observer rather than the observed, you unhook from the gravitational pull of circumstance. The scene still plays, but you're no longer inside the script. You're holding the camera. Pause right here. Feel the awareness that's noticing these words. That sense of presence, quiet, steady, unchanged since childhood. That's witness awareness. The body changes, the thoughts evolve, but the witnessing remains constant. It's the unmoved mover inside you, the origin point from which every act of creation begins. When you stabilize there, you stop reacting and start directing. You stop chasing outcomes and begin shaping probability. The second movement, assumption shift, begins once that witness is stable enough to observe its own programming. You start noticing the premises that sneak beneath every perception, the hidden statements you make about what's possible. Life is difficult. Healing takes time. I never have enough. These are not facts. They're settings. And the quantum field reads them as instructions. When you change the assumption, you change the script the universe runs. Think of assumption like gravity for attention. Whatever premise you stand upon pulls matching evidence toward you. Shift the gravity, and the evidence reorders. The key is not to force a new belief through repetition, but to observe from a new premise as if it's the natural baseline of existence. Instead of telling yourself, "I am abundant," which invites resistance, you observe reality as consciousness, for whom abundance is normal. That subtle repositioning collapses new probabilities without struggle. Then comes the third movement, quantum feeling, the one most misunderstood. It isn't emotional excitement or wishful pretending. It's the sensory awareness of a probability that already exists in the field, before it condenses into matter. You don't need to imagine its details. You feel its presence the way you'd sense music through a wall, real, though not yet visible. Quantum feeling turns potential into gravity. When you allow that sensation calm certainty that the desired state already exists, the field begins to cohere around it. Feeling is observation's twin. Together they collapse wave into form. This is why moments of deep peace or gratitude often precede sudden synchronicity. Consciousness and emotion have aligned in resonance. Practice the three movements gently. Throughout the day, return to the witness who is noticing this moment. Then, without judgment, check your assumption. What premise am I observing from right now? Finally, feel into the version of reality that matches your highest coherence. Not future fantasy, present potential. In time, these movements merge into one seamless act of conscious observation. You'll find yourself walking, speaking, even resting from that state. You won't have to manifest. Reality will already be mirroring your awareness. Because manifestation was never about effort, it was about calibration. As this synthesis stabilizes, the field begins to respond faster, not because you're forcing it, but because you've reduced interference. Observation becomes pure signal, and in that purity, creation unfolds almost effortlessly, like reflection following light. So breathe again. Sense the observer behind the breath, the assumption softening, the gentle hum of potential around you. That's the practice happening in real time. The three movements aren't techniques you use. They're what you are when awareness remembers itself. You might have noticed it already, that slight shift in texture around ordinary moments. A conversation unfolds differently. An obstacle softens before you push. The air itself feels more responsive, as if the unseen gears of reality have slowed to listen. That's not imagination. It's embodiment beginning. Because once you understand the three movements intellectually, the mind still tries to own them. It says, "I'll practice harder, I'll perfect the technique," but the field doesn't respond to effort. It responds to coherence. Embodiment happens not through mastery, but through relaxation into what's already true, that you are the observer, that your assumptions instruct the field, and that your feeling state is the tuning fork of manifestation. Think of this stage as learning to breathe underwater. At first, it feels unnatural, like you're trying to import old habits into a new medium. You catch yourself slipping into unconscious observation, judging, predicting, tightening, and then something remarkable occurs. Awareness catches the contraction as it's happening. That's consciousness awakening within the act itself. The shift isn't about never falling asleep again, it's about waking faster. Each time you notice an unconscious pattern and return to witness awareness, the neural and energetic circuits of creation realign. The field doesn't penalize you for forgetting. It waits patiently for your next clear observation. This is the mercy built into the mechanics. Reality is self-correcting once you remember how to look. As practice continues, subtle feedback begins to appear. Reality seems to echo your internal state with uncanny precision. When your observation is coherent, events click into alignment, a message arrives at the exact moment you need it. An opportunity emerges through impossible timing. When your observation is fragmented, the outer world stutters, delays, or tangles. This isn't superstition, it's feedback physics. The field mirrors your signal quality. Here, embodiment means learning to read those mirrors without panic. If the reflection distorts, don't scold the glass, adjust the gaze. The nervous system learns to interpret misalignment as information, not failure. And in that shift from self-judgment to self-awareness, the entire structure of reality begins to feel safer, more pliable. You may notice your body participating in the process. The breath deepens on its own, muscles soften, there's less rush to control. Somatically, the organism realizes that observation is action, that you don't need to push reality when presence already directs it. The calmer your biology, the clearer your field signature. This embodiment also dismantles the fantasy of instant perfection. Conscious observation doesn't remove challenge, it redefines it. Every disruption becomes a training ground for precision. You begin to see problems as feedback loops, signals showing you where observation has drifted. Suddenly, life itself becomes the meditation. Each circumstance a laboratory for refinement. It's here that the line between spiritual practice and daily living dissolves. Washing dishes becomes witness awareness in motion. Answering an email becomes assumption shift rehearsal. Driving, walking, speaking all become fields for quantum feeling. You stop seeking sacred spaces because presence makes every space sacred. And then, almost unnoticed, the shift stabilizes. The practice you once had to remember begins remembering you. Awareness activates spontaneously. Assumptions recalibrate mid-sentence. Feelings tune themselves before thought intervenes. Creation happens in real time, fluid, continuous. At this stage, others might sense something they can't name. They'll say, "You seem different," or "Things just work out for you." What they're perceiving isn't luck, it's alignment. Your observation has become constant enough that probability collapses around your coherence like iron filings to a magnet. Yet embodiment isn't an ending. It's a living relationship with reality, dynamic, conversational. The field keeps testing your clarity, inviting deeper honesty. Every new layer of awareness reveals subtler filters to dissolve. Every leap in consciousness opens another octave of participation. So as you stand in this new rhythm, no longer practicing but being the practice, pause again. Feel the hum of aliveness beneath the ordinary. That hum is the field recognizing you. It's consciousness nodding to itself through the mirror of form, whispering, yes. This is what it feels like when awareness becomes real. And yet, as that hum deepens, something unexpected begins to happen. The external world, the steady furniture of your old life, starts to tremble. Situations unravel, structures weaken, relationships stretch thin across widening spaces of silence. It feels as though reality itself is dissolving under your feet. You might think the technique is failing. It isn't. This is the quantum gap. The gap is not punishment, it's transition. When you shift how you observe, the probabilities that formed your previous reality can no longer stabilize. The field begins to reorganize, dismantling what was sustained by old assumptions. It's the same physics that governs wave collapse. Before a new pattern can cohere, the old one must decohere. That period of collapse feels like chaos because consciousness hasn't yet chosen the new alignment fully. Imagine you're standing between breaths. The inhale is gone, the exhale hasn't arrived. For a moment, there's suspension, empty, infinite. That's the gap. The instinct is to panic, to fill the space with frantic doing or desperate affirmations. But the true mastery lies in stillness. in trusting that this apparent emptiness is the womb of reformation. During my own descent through such intervals, I learned that the most challenging moments were also the most precise. Everything that could no longer resonate fell away. People left, plans dissolved. Even the body felt rewired, humming with frequencies that didn't match its history. I later understood this wasn't breakdown, it was decoherence in action. The field erasing interference so a cleaner signal could emerge. You may feel grief as certain identities die. Old desires lose their magnetism. Habits you once loved begin to taste artificial. This is normal. When observation changes, the self constructed from prior observation must unravel. Let it. Don't race to replace what's fading. The universe doesn't rush a particle to choose a position. It allows the superposition to hover until the observer is steady. Patience becomes physics here. The more you trust, the faster the field reorganizes. Because resistance, fear, doubt, overanalysis is just observation in disguise, feeding energy back into the collapsing pattern. The moment you relax into awareness itself, the quantum field finds its cue and begins building the new configuration. There's a reason mystics spoke of the dark night as sacred. It's not darkness of punishment, it's the darkness of gestation. Seeds sprout in soil, stars are born in void, and consciousness renews itself in unknowing. The gap is your personal event horizon, the border between who you were and who you're becoming. So when you feel lost, don't seek clarity, seek presence. The clarity belongs to the next pattern. Your task is to remain aware through dissolution. Watch what falls without chasing what replaces it. This surrender is not passive, it's participatory stillness, the purest form of observation. In this silence, creation is listening for your next coherent signal. Gradually, evidence will surface, coincidences cluster, new alignments whisper from directions your logic never mapped. It's as if reality was waiting for your surrender to unlock its alternative scripts. What seemed like collapse reveals itself as choreography. You might notice the body shifting too, sleep patterns recalibrating, spontaneous tears or laughter, spontaneous peace between waves of uncertainty. Don't pathologize it. The nervous system is learning to hold a larger bandwidth of reality. Every tremor means more energy is flowing through circuits once locked in defense. Stay gentle. The caterpillar does not critique its disintegration. It lets go of the body it once called home, trusting that structure will return when consciousness requires it. You're in the same metamorphosis. Between old and new realities lies a suspension that can feel endless, but it's already doing what it's meant to, decohering limitation. And when the new pattern begins to stabilize, it will feel almost anticlimactic, not fireworks, but a quiet click. The universe sighing into its next arrangement around you. Suddenly, things just work, not because you forced them, but because you observed faithfully through uncertainty. So, if you find yourself now in the gap half dissolved, half reborn, remember this is not the void of absence. It's the 0 point of creation. Stay there a little longer. The field is aligning to the clarity you've earned by enduring the unknown. On the far side of that gap, when silence finally starts to shimmer with new coherence, a different muscle of consciousness begins to awaken the ability to trust without proof. Not belief, not naive optimism, but an embodied trust in the physics of how reality responds to awareness. You feel it not as hope, but as gravity, a subtle pull toward the frequency of what's true. Trust here is not emotional, it's mechanical. Because once you've witnessed the field reorganize, even once watched it dissolve the impossible, simply because you stopped feeding contradiction, something ancient settles inside you. You understand that manifestation isn't fragile, it's precise. The field doesn't need convincing, it needs consistency. The paradox is that trust is built not by certainty, but by uncertainty survived. You don't discover faith when everything aligns. You discover it when nothing makes sense, yet something deeper in you refuses to collapse back into fear. That refusal, that calm stance in the middle of chaos, is how consciousness demonstrates mastery of its own mechanics. Think of trust as resonant stabilization. When you hold coherent observation through turbulence, you act like a tuning fork. At first, reality vibrates out of sync, producing noise delays, contradictions, half-manifested signals. But as you keep your tone steady, the field entrains. Probability waves synchronize with your frequency until the noise resolves into music. It's not about pretending the unwanted isn't real. It's about refusing to mistake temporary dissonance for final truth. The electron flickers between infinite positions before settling. That flicker is not failure, it's formation. Likewise, life flickers when new realities are trying to emerge. There will be moments when your mind screams for evidence, where you'll want to peek, to measure, to force the collapse before coherence is complete. That's the observer effect's trap. The very act of anxious checking introduces interference. Patience becomes the most advanced form of participation. Trust also has a physiological counterpart. When awareness expands, the nervous system must rewire to tolerate unknown outcomes. Old biology associates unknown with danger. Conscious evolution redefines it as creation. Every deep breath through uncertainty signals the body, we are safe inside the unknown. Over time, that safety becomes the bridge through which new probabilities cross into form. And then, something subtle begins to happen. Synchronicities increase, but they no longer startle you. You expected them not as miracles, but as natural responses. The same way a magnet attracts iron. Coherent observation attracts alignment. People, opportunities, resources begin appearing with uncanny timing, yet you experience it with quiet inevitability. You realize trust has matured into knowing. The knowing that you don't have to command reality, you only need to maintain coherence long enough for the universe to finish your sentence. That's all manifestation ever was, the universe completing what your consciousness began. Still, trust is not static. It evolves through layers of surrender. There's the first surrender to the idea that reality is responsive. Then the deeper surrender to the truth that even your resistance is part of the response. Eventually, you surrender to the understanding that there is no separation between observer and observed. Only movement, mirrored. In that final surrender, you begin to live less like a strategist and more like a musician. You stop planning manifestations and start playing them. Each intention is a note, each emotion a vibration, each assumption a key that modulates the melody. And trust is the rhythm that holds it all together. What emerges from this state is elegance. You do less. Life arranges more. The irony is that you become more powerful precisely when you stop trying to be powerful. Because power born of trust doesn't need volume, it radiates quiet authority, the kind that reality listens to. So if you find yourself in this stage, half scientist, half mystic, testing the boundaries of invisible mechanics, remember, the field is not asking for faith in fantasy. It's asking for fidelity to resonance. To trust means to stay tuned while the song writes itself through you. And as you do, the mechanics that once felt theoretical become undeniable. Observation stabilizes into trust. Trust stabilizes into creation. And creation stabilizes into life that moves with you, not behind you, not ahead of you, but as you. When that rhythm of trust begins to steady inside you, something vast starts to reveal itself. You begin to feel the collective pulse of awakening, not as metaphor, but as an actual field moving through the species. The same awareness that shifted your private reality is shifting humanity's shared one. What happens in you does not stay in you. Science calls this morphic resonance the principle that when a new pattern is learned by enough members of a species, the pattern becomes easier for all. Spiritual language calls it a rise in consciousness, a planetary frequency shift, different names, same mechanics the field remembers. Every act of conscious observation you stabilize adds coherence to the collective lattice. You might imagine billions of tiny observers, each adjusting their lens one breath at a time. Each time one human moves from fear to awareness, the field ripples outward, making it slightly easier for the next person to make the same leap. Your personal evolution becomes public infrastructure. What once required years of struggle now begins to happen spontaneously for others, because you held the pattern long enough for it to enter the shared code. We see hints of this everywhere. Conversations once considered fringe, now commonplace. Children speaking intuitively about energy and vibration, science cautiously echoing mysticism in its search for unified theories. The membrane between disciplines, between hearts, between worlds, is thinning. Consciousness is networking itself. And within that network, you start to sense your own role differently. You're not a separate node seeking salvation, you're a transmitter of coherence. Every time you ground into witness awareness instead of panic, you send a stabilizing signal into the grid. Every assumption you shift from scarcity to sufficiency, from isolation to interconnection, recalibrates the collective algorithm. Every moment of quantum feeling you hold as truth becomes a pulse the world can feel. The old systems, economic, political, relational, tremble because they were built on unconscious observation. Their foundation was fear disguised as control. As more observers awaken, those frequencies can no longer maintain coherence. That's why the world looks chaotic. We're watching global decoherence, the collective quantum gap. The patterns sustaining separation are dissolving so that higher harmonics of unity can emerge. It's easy to misread this turbulence as regression, but it's reorganization. Think of the collective field as a massive superposition, countless probabilities existing simultaneously. Every conscious observer tilts the equation toward integration. You don't need to march or shout to participate. Your calm presence is a revolutionary act. This is why personal awakening matters. When enough individuals learn to observe consciously, reality itself undergoes a phase transition. History calls these epochs Renaissance or Revelation, but they are simply field shifts, consciousness discovering itself through community. Even technology mirrors this process. Networks interconnect, data flows instantly. Minds merge through invisible signals, crude imitations of the telepathic coherence consciousness already practices beneath language. Every advancement in communication hints at an inner architecture catching up to outer expression. As the morphic field strengthens, manifestations accelerate, not just for individuals, but for humanity as a species. Innovations arrive through intuition, solutions appear through dreams. Cooperation replaces competition, not by moral instruction, but by resonance efficiency. Cooperation simply vibrates higher, so the field prefers it. And you, standing in the quiet of your room, breathing consciously, are part of that revolution. Your awareness is infrastructure. Each moment you choose clarity over confusion, presence over panic. You reinforce the template of coherence for everyone connected to you, which is everyone. So when the world feels unstable, remember the tremor you sense isn't collapse, it's synchronization. Billions of observers learning to harmonize their gaze until reality itself tunes to a new key. Stay with that awareness. Feel it in your body, the subtle hum of participation. That's not imagination. That's the field, alive with the memory of itself, gathering coherence through you. As that collective hum vibrates through you, life begins to take on an unfamiliar clarity, not because the world suddenly becomes simple, but because you have. The turbulence remains, yet it moves through an atmosphere of stillness. This is life lived from conscious observation. Here, nothing is wasted. Every encounter, every delay, every minor irritation becomes an instrument for precision. You start to see that reality is not something you manage, it's something you harmonize with. The line between inner and outer dissolves until the two become mirrors turning endlessly toward each other. You notice how quickly energy organizes when you stay coherent. Conversations align before words are chosen. Decisions feel less like weighing options and more like listening for which probability is already vibrating the loudest. Intuition no longer arrives as sudden insight. It's continuous guidance, a steady current beneath thought. This new way of living isn't flashy. From the outside, it looks ordinary. You still pay bills, wash dishes, navigate relationships, but internally, everything is luminous. You no longer inhabit the old hierarchy of spiritual versus mundane. Every act is sacred because consciousness saturates it. At first, this constancy of awareness feels almost weightless, as though you've slipped into a version of yourself that doesn't grip reality so tightly. The edges of effort blur. You don't need to force joy, because joy is the natural tone of consciousness unobstructed. You don't chase alignment, you rest as alignment. Relationships transform from need-based exchanges into mirrors of mutual recognition. You stop trying to fix others because you no longer perceive them as broken. Observation sees the wholeness already present, and in that seeing, the other person often remembers it too. The field between you becomes a resonance chamber where both identities dissolve into shared awareness. Even conflict becomes revelation. When disagreement arises, you recognize it as two frequencies seeking tuning. Instead of defending, you listen for the dissonance within yourself. Adjust that, and harmony follows. This doesn't mean complacency. It means precision, knowing when silence creates more change than argument. Fear, once a tyrant, becomes a messenger. You no longer interpret it as danger, but as information that perception has narrowed. A single breath can widen the lens again. With every expansion, the nervous system learns to host more complexity without contracting. The body, once burdened by control, becomes a sensory instrument of creation. There's also an elegance to the timing of events. Manifestations arrive exactly when they're coherent with your observation, not a moment sooner or later. You stop measuring progress by speed and start measuring it by quality. When alignment replaces ambition, time itself behaves differently, sometimes stretching to allow integration, sometimes collapsing to deliver miracles. From this state, gratitude becomes more than emotion, it's frequency maintenance. To be grateful is to affirm coherence, to tell the field, yes, this pattern serves the whole. Gratitude stabilizes creation. Complaining destabilizes it. You begin to choose your words the way a sculptor chooses pressure, knowing each one leaves an imprint on probability. And yet, there's humility here. Conscious observation doesn't grant omnipotence. It reveals partnership. You and the universe are co-authors, each sentence shaped by both intention and mystery. Some manifestations arrive precisely as envisioned. Others evolve beyond recognition. Either way, you trust the field's intelligence, knowing it responds to essence more than detail. This is the quiet paradox of mastery. The more deliberate your observation, the less you need to control outcomes. Life moves with you. The field corrects course faster than your plans ever could. You sense that reality isn't responding to requests, it's responding to recognition. When awareness stabilizes at this level, even the concept of manifestation dissolves. There's only expression consciousness flowing through form, recreating itself in endless variation. The observer and the observed merge into one seamless act of creation. So pause now. Feel your breath as the pulse of that unity. Each inhale is the field entering you. Each exhale is you entering the field. No separation, no effort, only awareness shaping existence with every heartbeat. And then there comes a morning when you wake and realize something irreversible has taken place. The shift isn't dramatic, no fireworks, no angelic fanfare, just a quiet knowing that you no longer look at life from the outside. You are the looking. You are the field observing itself into form. This is what the ancients meant by enlightenment, what modern mystics call stabilization, what quantum language might label observer entanglement. It isn't perfection, it's permanence, the understanding that awareness cannot unsee itself once recognized. You may still forget in moments, but forgetting no longer holds power. Consciousness returns like gravity. At this stage, conscious observation stops feeling like practice and starts feeling like identity. Witness awareness, assumption shift, quantum feeling, these no longer occur as distinct movements. They blend into a single pulse. You breathe and awareness breathes with you. You speak and the field speaks through you. Observation has become your native language. From here, creation simplifies. You don't plan manifestations, you sense them arising. You don't send intentions, you inhabit the frequency that births them naturally. When resistance appears, you meet it not as enemy, but as unintegrated energy calling for inclusion. The universe no longer feels like something to navigate. It feels like an ecosystem of which you are a conscious cell. Daily life becomes translucent. The boundaries between inner and outer soften until they dissolve entirely. You look at the sky and feel it looking back. You touch a wall and sense its atoms pulsing with the same awareness that animates you. The ordinary world traffic, laughter, even the sound of your own footsteps hums with living intelligence. In this phase, humility becomes the crown of consciousness. You realize the immense power of observation paired with the equal necessity of reverence. Every thought, every assumption, every emotion shapes the field. Power without humility distorts the wave. Reverence restores symmetry. You move more slowly, speak more carefully, love more completely. Eventually, even the fascination with quantum mechanics fades, because you no longer need metaphor to explain what you feel directly. The language of particles and probabilities served as training wheels for something far simpler, the heart's intuitive knowing that reality listens to love. Love, in this sense, is not sentiment, but coherence, the pure resonance of recognition between observer and observed. And then you notice that manifestation itself has transformed. What you create now always serves collective alignment. The field no longer permits purely personal gain. It organizes through unity. What benefits one must benefit many. The morphic network you strengthened earlier responds instantly, adjusting probabilities for balance. The personal and the planetary have merged. Some days this expansion feels weightless. Other days you sense the density of humanity moving through you, griefs, hopes, fragments of collective fear, but you no longer resist. You allow the current, trusting the intelligence of the whole. The observer who once created individually has become a conduit for universal coherence. From this vantage, you see that awakening was never about leaving the world, but participating in its renewal. Consciousness didn't incarnate to escape matter. It came to illuminate it. Every smile you share, every act of patience, every moment of clarity sends ripples through the lattice of reality, teaching the field what love looks like in motion. Eventually, even the question, "Who am I?" dissolves. Awareness stops seeking definition and rests in direct experience. You realize that you are not the creator of reality. You are creation continuously recreating itself. There is no endpoint, only deepening intimacy between consciousness and existence. And when you breathe now slowly, gently, the inhale carries galaxies and the exhale reshapes them. This is what it means to live as the quantum observer, stabilized in truth. Not separate, not superior, simply awake within the miracle of form. The quiet after revelation feels different, not empty, spacious. From this stillness, reality no longer rushes toward you, it breathes with you. The dance of manifestation has slowed to a rhythm your heart can match. Every moment is both signal and response, creation and reflection, one continuous conversation between awareness and the world it inhabits. You might notice how gentle life becomes once the struggle ends. Not because challenges disappear, but because resistance no longer multiplies them. You've learned to meet experience as whether temporary, necessary, passing through. The field reshapes around your calm like wind adjusting to a mountain effortless equilibrium. Pause here. Let your body register what stability feels like. The muscles unclenched, the mind unguarded, the observer resting inside its own light. You're no longer trying to be conscious. You're simply awake. When you reach this stage, language begins to falter. Words like manifestation, quantum, technique feel like footprints of an earlier journey, useful once, but now only echoes. The real transmission happens in silence, in the way your presence reorganizes space without speaking. The field recognizes coherence instantly. It needs no introduction. What remains is gratitude, not the practiced kind, but the spontaneous pulse that arises when awareness realizes it's been trusted with existence. Gratitude is the natural exhale of consciousness at peace with itself. It stabilizes everything you've learned, anchoring insight into embodiment. You may still wonder, what now? But the answer no longer comes as instructions. It comes as orientation. Observe, breathe, respond, repeat. That's all creation ever required. Your observation is the compass, your coherence, the current, and perhaps most importantly, you realize the work was never to build a new reality. It was to remember how to see the one that was always here. The miracle isn't that you can shape existence. It's that existence is endlessly willing to meet you halfway. So as this transmission closes, return to the simplest practice, awareness of awareness. Feel how the breath enters and leaves. Notice the space between. That pause, that luminous nothing, is where new worlds are born. Stay there often, not to escape, but to create consciously. You are not ending a lesson. You are beginning a life lived in dialogue with the field, deliberate, humble, awake,